Welcome, everybody. My name is Jeff Green. I'm the president of Green Team Realty. Thank you for joining us for the May 2020 housing market update. We're having a good old time here on the panel right as we got started. So thanks for joining me. Let's jump right into our stats. We've got a great panel, a bunch of jokers this month, so it should be fun, but we're not going to be joking about the information that we give to you. So here we go. Interesting times we live in, folks, for sure. Take a quick look at our beautiful panel there, joined by some excellent realtors and a great mortgage banker. So the big question is, when is the economy going to fully recover? That's what everybody's talking about right now, and that's what everybody's placing bets on, you know, so on and so forth. So let's hear what some of the experts have to say, and then you'll hear what some of us local people have to say about, you know, our local economies. So there are some very substantial financial institutions calling for a second half recovery. Now, just within the last couple of days, Chairman of the Fed, Mr. Powell, has come out and said that recovery is probably going to take longer than most people expect, which is contradicting what you're seeing here on this slide. But, you know, he's one person. Of course, he's a very important person, but he's one person, and other people's opinions do count as well. What Goldman, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, and Wells Fargo are all saying is that the recovery should happen in the second half of 2020, Q3 and Q4. All right, so that's good news for the rest of us here. This is also some good news. Although the unemployment numbers are like unbelievably high historically, they're trending down as far as the number of filings by week. Okay, so it seems like we've peaked. We're coming down on the number of employment filings that are actually happening. And now as the country starts to reopen, hopefully we'll start to see those numbers go down. We took a look at this last month, the breakdown of the US Bureau of Labor Statistics in terms of what different profession categories were making up the large majority of the unemployment filings. And last month, if you recall, if you were watching or, you know, we're here as part of the webinar that we do, servers and bartenders made up like 60% of the filings. Now that number has changed a little bit because, you know, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but it's come down, but still the large majority of people that are filing for unemployment are tied to the retail industries, temporary services, restaurants, so on and so forth. So you can see that there's a lot of, you know, profession industry categories that are not included in these numbers. And that's really a good sign, right? Because it tells us that as soon as we can get back to somewhat of a normal situation where we can at least go to a restaurant and have a meal, a lot of jobs are going to snap back and things will come back. I know that there's a lot of people that are just itching to get back out there. And I heard some reports, I can't remember where it was, but somewhere a bar had opened and it was like jam-packed line out the door. So people are clearly willing to risk getting the virus to have a good drink after all this. So we're gonna see the restaurant industry snap back. Here's a very important metric right here. This may be the most important one as it relates to real estate, and it's data from Showing Time, which is kind of the player in the space as far as tracking showings that are taking place on listings. We all as realtors use the system to communicate with one another and with the sellers, the owners of the home, to be able to get into the houses. So this data system is providing us with analytics to show us how many showings were happening on March 8th. You can see it here. And then it plummeted all the way down through the 4th of April, but now it's shooting back up. So, you know, it shows that, you know, we panicked. We didn't know what was going on. We were in shutdown mode as a country, learning what we were going to do, how we were going to make things operate. And I think we, you know, as a country, have found a level of comfort to be able to just literally move through society, physically move through places, and how to do this and how to stay safe. And now we all have our masks and our gloves, and we're geared up, right? And we have intelligence now on how to do this. So things are coming back around because at the end of the day, people still need to live. They still need to move if they're transferring jobs or whatever it has, right? So life does go on despite a pandemic. And that shows us right here that that is true. So here's another important factor. Okay, now there's a million things that we could talk about as it relates to the economy, but of course, being the housing market update, we're always trying to slant, towards the housing market update and how it's going to impact here. But most importantly, what are the fundamentals of the housing market industry? What are things that are going to carry us through, right? So percentage of homeowner equity is a very important analytic, right? Because if you could imagine yourself having no mortgage on your house, free and clear, you're going to be a little bit more calm about the way things are going. You probably won't pull back on spending so much versus if you have a very high debt to equity ratio, things are going to be a little tighter. The noose is going to be around your neck a little bit more, and you're just probably going to pull back on spending. So this is a very good pie chart that shows that 41% of homeowners in the United States have no mortgage on their property, right? And this next chart shows, I'm going to flip back to the one that you just saw in a second. They're a little bit out of order, but 58% of homes in America have at least 60% equity. Okay, so that's a really good number. And the average equity in a mortgaged home is $177,000. So the net worth, right? And when you're talking about balance sheets, the American homeowner has got a pretty good balance sheet overall on an average basis. So that's a good thing that is going to help us get through this downturn. Okay, whereas when you look back at the yellow line is the Great Recession from 06 to 16, and the white line is the Great Depression, right? They didn't have those fundamentals that you just saw in those last two slides. Those fundamentals were not in place like they are now in these two major economic calamities that we went through. So you can see Goldman's projection is the red line, JP Morgan is the orange line. Sorry about that. Both are basically projecting that, within 2 years of when this whole thing started, our economic activity is going to be back to where it was versus a 9-year run with the Great Recession and a 12-year run with the Great Depression. So I don't think anybody can deny the fact that before this thing happened, the economy was cooking. I mean, the American economy was really in a good spot. It was cranking. And to think that we could get back to that level within a couple of years' time is a very hopeful thing. Even if we got back to 50% or 75% of the level that we were at, we can survive, right? But to be able to thrive at the way that we were, to be able to get back to that within 2 years, now look, it may not happen, but you have some pretty big organizations making a call that it's likely that that may happen within a couple of years of time. So some good news there, right? Trying to be positive throughout all of this. Let's take a look at some existing home sales on the national level. This chart's going to be very interesting to watch this year, right? We're kind of, we're showing March numbers, which is really pre-COVID, right? So we get these numbers from the national level, and we're always a month behind, right? So I'm going to show you locally. We'll be in April. We'll show through April. National is March, but you can see that the green line is basically a little bit lower than the previous couple of years. Nothing really to write home about here. Average home price clearly on an upward trend. Prices were not going down prior to pre-COVID, and it doesn't look like they're going to, largely because of this here, the inventory. Okay, even though you see this line trending back towards a higher months of inventory, the higher the number of months of inventory, the more of a buyer's market it is. The lower the months of inventory, the more of a seller's market it is. An average market is generally 6 months. In this case, we're down at 3 months. So it's a very hot seller's market. It has been for the last 4 years. And it doesn't really look like that's going to change at all. We're going to hear from troops on the ground in just a minute. It's still very intense out there. And it's even a little bit more intense because a lot of people are refraining from putting their homes on the market. And we're gonna unpack that in a little bit. Now, what is interesting is what's going on in Orange County, New York versus Sussex County, New Jersey, bordering counties in different states. Why? What is going on between these two states? Well, one governor is not allowing us to physically show homes to buyers. The other is, and there's a clear indication of what's going on right now. we are, you know, the sales in Orange County just absolutely plummeted. I mean, if you look at this, you know, the numbers in April were substantially lower. I mean, you could probably go back, you know, 8 years and you might not see a number that low for April. So the fact that we were just completely shut down from being able to show homes, even to a single individual, really wreaked havoc on our local real estate market here. You can see that it didn't really do much to average sales price. We're hanging in there, but it certainly, you know, is not on the trend that we're going to see here in Sussex. Now, Sussex County, you know, held firm. Quite frankly, they had a good month in April. There's quite a few number of transactions happening, but they were never, you know, shut down in terms of being able to physically show homes to buyers. All right, a stark difference. In fact, New York State is the only state in the union that did that to the real estate community, and I see that as a big problem and a mistake, quite frankly. So you can see price trend in Sussex County is just going. You know, prices are continuing to rise as inventory becomes even tighter. There's really nothing to say that price isn't going to continue to increase. So some housekeeping items here before we get to our panel. You know, join us. It's always the third Tuesday of the month at 2 p.m. June 16th is our next date for the housing market update. You can stay in touch with the housing market update by going to our website, greenteamrealty.com/HMU, or just go to our website and you'll find your way there. It's pretty easy to do. Thank you to Really, the Business Referral Exchange, for sponsoring our housing market update. You can join for free at reallyhq.com. It's a simple tool for business professionals to track and exchange referrals with speed and ease. And without further ado, look at that panel. Let's go to our panel and check in with these ladies and hear from them how things are going on the beat. So I see Karen going in first, Angela Murphy second, Nancy Sardo third, Summer and Christy fourth and fifth. So Karen, let's just start with you. I see you first. You can unmute your mic, and if you have any comments about, you know, any of the information that you just saw, please share with us what you did. Otherwise, I'm just curious to know what's going on. How are things going? Are you busy? Are you not? So on and so forth.
I have to say that I'm very busy. So I was quiet for just a few weeks when we first got quarantined, but we were able to continue working in New Jersey. And with that being the case, the profile of the buyers has changed. The sellers are still releasing houses, but very slowly. Houses that are good get under contract immediately. So it's literally, if you see a house that you like, let's go to see it today because it may be gone tomorrow. That's how hot the market is right now. Definitely a seller's market.
So Angela, Karen, you just said that the profile of the buyer has changed. Is that what you said? Is that how you phrased that?
I did. And the reason I said that is because I no longer have those browsers, people that want to see 30 houses and then make a decision. It's literally one day of showing, 4 or 5 houses. That day or the following day, we put in an offer and either we get it right then and there or we don't. And the next time we go see, we see a house and we put an offer on that. So there's no more browsing.
So you're saying that this is a realtor's dream come true?
Absolutely. If you're willing to work and you're a good realtor, this is your dream. This is heaven.
Yeah.
Serious buyers only, right? Murph, what do you see in Angela Murphy?
Yeah, I know. I agree with Karen. It's definitely a seller's market. And if people hesitate, they're losing out on the house that they want. So buyers that are out are serious and they are putting bids in. Yeah.
Interesting. Nancy, I just spoke with you yesterday individually. You were talking to me about how busy you were and you have listings coming on. So it almost seems like full speed ahead, no?
Yes, I feel the same way, full speed ahead. The resale market for myself is quite busy. I concur with Karen and Angela, as far as the profile for the buyers are changing. They're more inclined now to move quickly. And what I specialize in both resales, but what I'm finding is a lot easier maybe to work with buyers that are in the new construction, looking for new construction. We've had pretty much right across the board since April of 2016 till now, building permits are pretty much at 1,200 building permits in the Northeast. area right now, thousands of units, 1,200 units right now seasonally, are showing that the building permits are increasing. We had a very small drops from last year to this year, but their starts and the completions are still on track for new construction. There are people that don't have to be convinced anymore to move forward. And with new construction, that's much more difficult because they're basically looking at a piece of land and visualizing the birth of their home. I just came from 2 homes at the subdivision that I'm completing in Warwick Ridge, and the buyers, we couldn't believe we were there. Within 4 months, the house is up, it's beautiful, excited. Quite a few more new construction clients, but one of the things that we're finding is we don't have the land. We need the land to build on. So we're finding that the different towns are having different restrictions on releasing land and giving out planning board approvals. That's taking a little bit longer, but definitely there's going to be an increase in new construction. Yeah, and not having a lot of resales has helped that.
And you have to think though that, like, as far as the right to build process and getting the approvals, that's going to be even more challenging right now because town board meetings aren't happening, and if they are, they're happening via Zoom and they're not going so well, as we know. And it's a challenging time for that. But I can tell you, I know it's a very small example for some people who may be watching this from some other areas of the country. But right here in Warwick, there's quite a few, fully approved and improved in some situations with drainage and roads that are just sitting there. I mean, it's probably the time to come off the shelf if you're a builder and get these things going, because a lot of individual homeowners don't want to put their home on the market for various reasons. So it's even better opportunity for new construction, perhaps. Maybe this is an angle that we never saw. Maybe there's going to be a major influx of new construction,
Well, we have had, in the month of April this year, 1,074,000 sold and 891,000 housing starts. And completed 1,176,000. So we are building. The builders have not stopped building. It's particular buyers now are somewhat hesitant of a tight-knit kind of community. They're looking for more land, which I'm finding, which was not the case last year. That's where I see a change in what's going on with COVID. I see people looking to come at an acre or above. Pelton Crossing in our area just took off. We sold 29 lots in 1 year, and they were all built out. And that was a pretty tough subdivision to sell back when it began, and now it's completed and beautiful. We're looking forward to the big banks starting their new construction loans again. The bank that I work with, very fond of, does give construction loans. They have a very good portfolio, and that's, if I could mention, Valley National. We work with Summer here and closing on 2 of those. And I gotta say, we're having more and more buyers and more recommendations from buyers who built, good experience, ready to move forward, selling their, getting their houses built and no longer looking for resales. I think last year, the year before, in Orange County at least, tired out buyers coming back to look for resales. Now they're looking more towards, in my experience, building. They're not holding back to build the thought of building.
So we're going to parlay to Summer in just a bit, but Christy Anderson, I want to bring into the fold here. So I don't want to get away from this issue of, I don't want to end the meeting without talking a little bit about the issue of the fact that we haven't been able to show. So in New York State, it's been like one change after the other, right? As far as what we can do, what we can't do, so on and so forth. So right now we're able to, as realtors, we're able to virtually show a home. In other words, we can walk in with our phone, have a client sitting out in the driveway in their car, and we can walk them through it, or they're sitting at their home and watching the video, so on and so forth. We're not physically able to take a buyer through a home. So Christy, you're a New Jersey realtor primarily, okay? And you've been operating through this whole pandemic thing. How has it been going with the showings? Has it been a problem? Do you think that there has been a major health risk by bringing one person through a home, which is what the governor in the state of New Jersey has allowed? Can you just comment on that a little bit?
I really haven't had any issues. Most people are coming with masks as I request, and gloves. And I also keep a box of gloves and masks in my car. So if someone forgets it or their mask breaks, I have it for them. But I really haven't had any problems. I mean, there's a few sellers that don't want any showings,
Right.
but for the most part, they're pretty much showing.
Mhm.
So I haven't caught anything as far as I know. So
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. That's good to know for sure. And just in general, how are you feeling things are going for your business and for the market as a whole? Are things rocking and rolling, or where are you at?
things are definitely rocking and rolling. I listed a house a couple weeks ago. In a very short time period, I had about 20 showings and I ended up with 4 offers.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I think that, if there's anybody out there watching and you're contemplating whether or not to list your home, I think all of us on this panel would agree. List your home. It's a great time to list your home. Even in New York, where you can't show the house physically, deals are still getting done, which is remarkable. All right, so Summer, let's talk a little bit about the mortgage industry. Last month when we were here, there was a little bit of a scare because of what was happening with the forbearances. People were just kind of jumping into it, and there wasn't any regulation on, you needed to show a need to be in the program, and banks were kind of freaking out, and they were looking to the federal government to kind of infuse a lot of cash into the system so that it wouldn't happen. So where are things right now with the mortgage industry as a whole, and how do you see it moving forward in the next 60 to 90 days?
I think that, yes, there's about 4.7 million mortgage holders right now that have requested forbearance, and that number is as of May 12th. What's happening, the federal regulators have gotten together, the Department of Housing and Urban Development have come up with a new way to make forbearance a little bit easier for mortgage holders. So, for example, it was, you were able to skip 3 to 6 months mortgage payments, but on month 4 or month 7, you had to pay that one lump sum, up front, which if you're unemployed, I mean, that's going to be hard to do, right? So what the federal regulators have done is they've changed it a little bit where you can make up missed payments when you sell or refinance the home at the end of the mortgage. So they're working together to try to help make it a little bit easier so that the banks don't get like, okay, on month 4 or month 7, when these missed payments are due in one lump sum, they know that, all right, that might not be feasible for a lot of, mortgage holders,
Right.
So they're working and they're making changes as we go along.
Yeah, I don't hear much chatter about defaults. A lot of, home loans, people defaulting on their payments. I mean, maybe it's because there's this forbearance program. Maybe that's kind of shielding the number of legit defaults that would be taking place. Do you have any comment on that? I mean, I just don't hear any chatter about it other than.
Well, I think a large part of that has to do with the fact that, after the last mortgage market crisis, a lot of the banks became a little bit more prudent,
Right.
In their lending. And so that was, one good thing that came out of it. So I don't think we're going to hear a lot of chatter about defaults.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's be honest, the banks, people are opportunists by nature. So, thankfully, some decent regulations were set in place. I mean, it's like the pendulum always swings too far at first, right? It's like when Dodd-Frank first came out, it like hit really hard and it like stopped things from happening, and it took a while to adjust things. And then finally we ended up, with a good set of regulations that the mortgage industry was able to operate and be able to get enough mortgages flowing to get the economy going again. But I would agree with what you just said. is that by and large, most of the loans that have been written in the last 10 years or so have been solid, right? They've required people to actually have verifiable income, for people to have serious down payments that they're not willing to walk away from. So, so I've been saying that for a while, is that, you know, to me, the one key fundamental that may be able to carry this housing market to keep going here for another, you know, series of years is the fact that there was good loans written.
Yeah.
You know? So that's a big positive. Okay. Well, it's 2:27. We're right on time. I always try to keep these to 30 minutes or less. Would anybody else like to add anything else before we wrap it up?
Jeff,
Go ahead, Murph.
I would like to mention that in New York State, if the sellers give access, buyers can walk through the home.
That is true. That is true. Sellers can, it's complicated, but we'll,
It is.
you know, I don't want to take the pressure off the administration of New York State to let us operate, right? There's a major amount of tax revenue at stake here. Our budgets are busting. We need the tax revenue. There's a huge amount of tax revenue that comes from the real estate industry. I just, you know, all 49 other, you know, states in the union have been operating, and I don't think that there's, you know, a major instance of the spread occurring as a result of the real estate industry. So I think we can responsibly do it. You know, I think our industry as a whole has proven in other states that it can be done responsibly. And I just, you know, as we're coming up to this phase 2 deadline, right? And a lot of things are unknown, and I have to imagine that there's a lot of debates going on internally as to what to do with real estate. I don't think anybody really knows what's going to happen, but I'm not saying Governor Cuomo is watching the housing market update here, but if he is, I would encourage him
Never know.
please let us show homes. We can do it responsibly. We're doing it just to the south of us in New Jersey. There's not a major instance of any spread occurring with the virus. Let us do our thing. We're good at what we do, you know? So we'll leave it at that. One last thing.
Can I mention one thing?
Yes, please go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that many listing agents are now requiring, before we are allowed as buyer agents to show the house, they are requiring that buyers produce a pre-approval. And that actually makes it a lot easier for us, because I tell everybody that, hey, I can take you to see that house, but before I can set up an appointment, we have a few addendums to sign, such as the Corona and the COVID addendum. And the listing agent may require a pre-approval. So instead of it being further down in the position of actually putting in an offer, we get that in advance, which shows us that the buyer really is qualified and we're not wasting our time. And that's important to add, so that everybody knows that it's not just us being hard on the buyers, it's actually required by the listing agents. And I can tell you that on my listings, I also call the mortgage lender the pre-qualified to make sure that it's an actual pre-qualification and not just a verbal pre-approval. I told you what my finances were over the phone.
Right.
So they need to know that, because we are being more cautious as buyers and sellers agents to do what is needed to get good qualified buyers to the homes that we're showing.
Yeah, good point. Good point. All right. So as we wrap it up, I just want to share the contact information of everybody that was on the panel today. Here's all the information. If you're watching the recording of this video, you can hit pause and take down the cell phone numbers of any of these ladies. And just thanks a million for everybody being here. It was a great panel. And we'll see you next month in June. All right, take care, everybody.